Cloning a website with a single prompt sounds almost too good to be true, I know. And honestly, the first time that I tried it with Claude, well, I thought the same thing. But what came out the other side genuinely surprised me. Because here's the thing that most people don't even realize. Cloning a website isn't just about copying how it looks. You're recreating the layout, the interactions, the feel of actually using it. And if you walk into that with a weak prompt, well, then you're gonna get something that looks like a rough sketch of the real thing. But when the prompt is structured the right way, well, you can build surprisingly complete versions of apps like Facebook, Trello, Airbnb, even X in one shot. So in this tutorial, I'm going to break down the exact prompt structure that consistently produces better results, how to define the layout, the key components, the functionality, and the overall design direction, so that by the end, you're going to be able to clone almost any website as a solid starting point, and then make it completely your own. Now, if you do want to master AI tools, and of course you want to learn, right, how to build profitable SaaS apps and websites and AI agents and mobile apps with AI, I've created a complete masterclass that shows you exactly how to do all of this step by step. Now, my masterclass normally costs $499 to join, but since you are taking the time to watch this video, thank you very much. You can join completely free. Just check out that link in the description below to get free access to my masterclass, and you too can start building your own AI-powered business today. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this. The first step is making sure that Base 44 is using Claude as the model. Now, this matters because the model you choose affects how clean, stable, and accurate the final build feels, especially when you are asking it to recreate detailed layouts, interactive features, and a full app structure from one prompt. Now, Claude is a strong choice for this kind of build simply because it just understands complex instructions really well. It's good at reading layout requirements, keeping the design consistent, and following the structure you give it without really drifting too much. Now, for a website clone, that makes a big difference because we do need the result to look polished, to stay organized, and actually work like an app, not just a static page. Now, to switch models inside of Base 44, let's go to app.base44.com and look at the main prompt panel here. In the bottom left corner, you'll see the settings icon. Now, click that to open the configuration panel. And then from there, open up the model dropdown, scroll down through the available options, and then select Opus 4.8. Once Opus 4.8 is selected, Base 44 will use Claude's flagship model for the build. And doing that gives us stronger reasoning for more complex prompts, better structure for software-style apps, and really just more reliable results when the project has multiple sections and interactions. So make sure to always check that Claude is active before sending over a prompt. The small icon in the bottom left corner here should change then into an orange asterisk style icon, which represents Anthropic's Claude. It only takes a second, but it helps make sure that the build runs through the right model. So for client-ready apps, this small step really does matter. Claude is better at keeping layouts clean, making sure elements scale properly, handling database-style logic, and keeping navigation stable across the app. So for every clone in this video, we're going to make sure that Claude is selected first. The quality of the app mostly comes down to the first prompt you give Claude. If the prompt is clear, specific, and structured, then Claude has enough direction to build something that really does feel like one complete application. And if the prompt is vague, well, then the result usually does feel generic, unfinished, or maybe even missing key parts. A weak clone prompt usually sounds too broad. So if you just say something like clone Reddit or make an app like Facebook, well, then Claude has to guess the layout, the features, the design style, and the interaction logic. And that's when you start getting basic layouts, plain sections, random spacing, and features that only look like they work. The model fills in the blanks using its default idea of a website, and that usually just gives you something pretty average. But a strong clone prompt just works differently. It gives Claude the structure of the app from the start. It explains how the page should be laid out, what sections need to appear, how the user should interact with it, and what visual style it should follow. So the clearer those instructions are, then the less guessing that Claude has to do. So every good clone prompt needs 4 things. First, it needs the layout structure, and that means describing how the screen is arranged, whether the app uses columns, sidebars, sticky headers, fixed panels, or independent scrolling areas. And then second, it needs the key sections and components like, say, the search bars, user cards, feeds, panels, forms, modals, or navigation menus. Third, it needs the core functionality, which then means explaining what should actually happen when, say, someone clicks, types, posts, filters, votes, or drags something. And then fourth, it needs the design direction so that Claude really understands the overall look, the branding style, the typography, spacing, and visual mood that you want. One important thing here is that you can't just name the section. You have to explain what the section does. Saying add a post composer is okay, but saying add a post composer where the user can type text, click post, and instantly add a new post to the top of the feed just gives Claude much more to work with. So that extra detail tells it to build the state, the button action, and the feed update, not just a box that looks like a composer. The same idea applies when referencing the original product. You can use Facebook, yes, and Reddit and Trello and Airbnb or Twitter or X as the design and structure reference, but do not rely on Claude to magically know every detail that you want. Mention the product as the benchmark and then spell out the actual layout and features. Tell it what parts to recreate, how the app should behave, and what interactions matter most. A single strong prompt is usually better than 5 vague correction prompts after the fact. A well-written prompt lets Claude build the app as one connected system from the beginning. If you keep patching a weak first result with small corrections, then the app can really just start feeling messy. Styles will conflict, features get bolted on, and parts of the interface just stop matching each other. So for this video, the prompt is the main skill. We're not just asking Claude to clone a website. We're giving it a clear blueprint for the layout, the components, the functionality, and the design. And that's what gives each clone a much better chance of coming out clean, accurate, and actually usable in one pass. So for the first clone here, we're starting with Facebook, of course, because it's a really good test of whether Claude can handle a layout that has a lot going on at the same time. A Facebook-style app is not just one feed sitting in the middle of the page. It needs a fixed left sidebar, a center feed that scrolls on its own, a right sidebar for contacts and suggestions, plus a top navigation bar that stays in place while everything else just kind of moves around it. Now, the reason this is a strong benchmark is because the layout has to stay organized even when there are multiple sections on the screen at the same time. If the sidebar shifts, if the feed spacing breaks, or if the postcards just kind of start blending into each other, then, well, the whole thing just kind of immediately feels wrong. On top of that, the clone also needs real interaction. Users should be able to type in a post, publish it, and then see it appear at the top of their feed. And each post also needs its own like button, and of course, that like state has to update separately without affecting the other posts. So for the prompt here, I'm not just asking Claude to clone Facebook. Rather, the full prompt is here shown on your screen, and I'm telling Claude to build a high-fidelity Facebook-style layout using the familiar branding, typography, and structure. The prompt here describes the sticky top navigation bar, the search input, the 3-column layout, the fixed left and right sidebars, the stories row, the post composer, the sample feed cards, the suggested friends section, and the active contacts list. Now, the most important part of the prompt is the functionality. It tells Claude that the feed should be tracked as an internal state array. So when someone types into the composer and clicks post, a new post gets added to the top of the feed instantly. It also tells Claude that each like button should work independently, changing its active color state and increasing only that post's counter. So to build it, I'll go to app.base44.com. I'm going to open up the prompt console, the main one, and check the model settings first. Again, the settings icon is in the lower left corner of the prompt area here, and I'm making sure it's set to Opus 4.8, so Base44 uses Claude for the build. Once Claude is active, I click inside the prompt box. I'm going to paste that full Facebook clone prompt shown on your screen, and then I'm going to hit the arrow icon to start the generation. And once Base 44 finishes, the preview opens up right away, and we can really start testing how close the clone actually got. Now, the first thing to check here is the overall layout. The generated app locks into a clean 3-column structure, with the left navigation staying in place, the center feed scrolling independently, and the right contacts rail holding its position while the page moves. Now, the top navigation bar also comes through clearly. It stays anchored here at the top, includes the Facebook-style logo treatment, has a working search input in the center area, and places the utility icons on the right in a way that feels familiar. Now, the left sidebar includes the expected shortcuts like friends, groups, marketplace, and saved, so the basic platform structure is immediately recognizable. Now, the center feed is the main part of the clone, and Claude handles it well too. The stories row sits above the composer, the postcards are stacked cleanly, and each card includes user details, body text, image, placeholders even, and an interaction bar. The post composer also works the way it should. I can type a message, I can click post, and then the new entry appears at the very top of the timeline as a complete post card. And then the right sidebar gives the layout that final Facebook style shape. It includes suggested friends, connection buttons, and a contact list with active status indicators. So the page actually feels more like a full social dashboard rather than just a simple feed mockup. What Claude gets right here is the structure. The spacing, the sections, and the feed layout all feel connected, and the interaction logic works without mixing up data between posts. Each like button as well updates its own counter, and new posts are added cleanly into the feed. The main limitation is that this is still a single prompt local version. The posts are stored in a temporary client-side state, not a real backend database. So if the page reloads, any custom posts disappear, and then the feed just goes back to the original mock data. And that's expected for this stage, but it's important to understand the boundary. Even with that kind of limitation, this clone is a strong starting point. You could turn it into a private social platform, an employee update feed, a student community portal, or a client dashboard where users can post updates and interact with each other. The layout and the interaction foundation are already there. The next step would be simply connecting the post system to a real database so the content stays saved permanently. But here's the thing, as you've seen, Base 44 is incredibly powerful, but most people still don't know how to use it properly because they end up building super basic apps that don't make any money or websites that can't even convert. So that's exactly why I created my own complete Base 44 masterclass. Inside of my course, I'm going to show you step by step how to build profitable SaaS businesses, high converting websites, and mobile apps, all using AI with zero coding required. You're also going to learn how to build AI agents that solve real problems and generate recurring revenue, the exact prompts and the strategies that I use myself to create professional websites in minutes, along with how to, again, clone successful apps and add your own profitable twist, and my proven system for turning Base 44 projects into actual income streams. It's not just theory. I'm going to walk you through real builds. I'm going to show you my exact process, and I'll give you the templates and the frameworks that have helped my own students launch their very own successful AI-powered businesses too. And again, this masterclass normally costs $499 to join, but only for the people that are investing their time to watch this video. Thank you very much. You can join completely free. So if you are serious about building something profitable with AI in 2026, and I hope you are, you got to click that link in the description to join my Base 44 masterclass, because I'm telling you, your future self would thank you for taking action today, right now, instead of just watching another tutorial after this one. All right, so back to building. So Reddit is a good second clone here because it has something different from Facebook. The layout is still important, yes, but the real challenge now is the interaction system. A Reddit-style app needs posts and communities and voting, comments, and a thread view that opens when someone wants to read the full discussion. The reason this clone matters is because Reddit cannot just be a static feed. Each post needs its own score, and then that score has to be controlled properly. If someone clicks upvote repeatedly, then the number should not keep climbing forever. The app also needs a smooth way to move from the main feed into a dedicated comment thread, then return back to the home page without refreshing the whole page. And so for the prompt, I'm going to keep the full version here on your screen. The main thing it asks Claude to build is a dark-themed Reddit-style forum with a top navigation bar, a left community sidebar, a central post feed, a right panel for community information and rules, working upvote and downvote buttons, a post creation flow, and a separate comment thread view with nested replies. And then to run it, I'm just going to go back to app.base44.com, and then I'm going to open up the main prompt console. Again, I'm going to check the lower left settings icon and make sure Opus 4.8 is selected so that the build does run through Claude. And then I'm going to paste that Reddit clone prompt shown here on your screen, and then I'm going to click the arrow icon to generate the app. And once Base44 finishes up, the preview opens right away and we can start testing it out. Now the homepage here, the feed comes through clearly with separate postcards in the center. And then each card includes the title, the subreddit label, poster details, comment count, and voting controls so that the main Reddit structure is easy to recognize. The voting system is the first thing to check. Clicking upvote raises the score by 1, and clicking downvote moves it back down. More importantly, the app does not let the score stack endlessly from repeated clicks, which means now that Claude really does understand the voting rule from the prompt. The comment flow also works well, so when I click, say, a comment button, then the app switches away from the main feed and then opens that post inside its own thread view. The selected post appears at the top, followed by a comment box and nested replies underneath. Also, the replies are indented so that the discussion feels layered instead of flat. The sidebars help complete the Reddit feel. The left side here shows community navigation and subscribe boards, while the right side shows community details and the rules. The post creation flow also works, letting a user open a form and then add a new post directly into the feed. Claude's strongest result here is the view switching, because now the app moves between the homepage and the comment thread smoothly, and then the vote counters do stay attached to the correct posts. The main limitation, though, is that the nested comments only go a few layers deep. Yes, it captures the Reddit-style reply structure, but it does not create an infinite recursive comment system from one prompt. Even so, this gives you a strong starting point for a community product. You could turn it into a customer feedback portal, a private niche forum, a company suggestion board, or a members-only discussion space. Now, the feed, the voting, the posting, and thread structure are already working, and then the next step would be connecting the posts, the votes, and comments to a real database so that everything does stay saved permanently. Trello changes the rhythm of the video here because we're no longer just cloning another feed. This build is about a board, and everything moves sideways. Tasks live inside separate lists, and the main interaction is not liking or commenting. It's dragging a card from one stage of work into another. And that makes Trello a really useful benchmark for Claude. A Kanban app has to keep track of multiple columns at once, and each column has its own tasks data. A card inside To Do is not the same as a card inside In Progress, and when that card moves, then the app has to update the right list without losing the card's title, its description, label, or assignee. The full prompt, again, is shown here on your screen, but the idea is simple. I'm asking Claude to create a Trello-style project management app with a top utility bar, a left sidebar for switching between boards, a horizontal workspace, a board title with member avatars, 3 columns for To Do, In Progress, and Done, inline card creation, and mouse-based drag and drop between columns. So again, I'll open up Base44, I'll go into the main prompt area console here again and make sure, again, that the model is still set to Opus 4.8 from the lower left settings icon. And once Claude is active, I'm going to paste the Trello prompt shown here on your screen, and I'm going to hit the arrow button to generate our board. So after the build finishes, the layout already feels different from the first 2 clones we've made. The workspace here stretches horizontally like a real Kanban board, and the 3 task columns sit beside each other with enough spacing to make each stage clear. The left sidebar gives the app that project dashboard feel, while the board header here shows the active project name and the team member avatars. The cards are the real focus here, of course, and each one appears as a separate task block with a headline, short description, category label, and assigned user marker. They do look modular, which matters because the whole point of Trello is that every card feels like a movable piece of work. So now for the main task, dragging. When I click and hold a task card, I should be able to move it across the board and then drop it into a different column, and I can. The card transfers into the new list and the app updates the column data behind the scenes. And that's the part that makes this feel like more than just a visual mockup. Claude actually builds the interaction that lets tasks change status. Card creation works inside the columns too, so if I click the Add Card option at the bottom of a list like so, an inline input appears and the new task gets added directly to that specific column. So if I say create a card under Done, it stays in Done. If I create one under To Do, it stays there. So that separation is important for any real project management tool. Claude handles the core Kanban logic well as well. The board stays stable, the columns remain organized, and cards can move between lists while still keeping their original details attached. The main limitation here is more specific. Dragging between columns works smoothly, but reordering a card inside the exact same column is less precise. In this version, a move card usually lands at the bottom of the list instead of being inserted perfectly between 2 existing cards. And that still leaves you with a strong foundation nonetheless. A build like this could become a client tasks tracker, a support ticket pipeline, a content planning board, or an internal workflow system for a small business. The column-based structure already matches how a real database would store task statuses later on, so connecting it to permanent data would be a natural next upgrade. Airbnb brings the clone into a marketplace territory, so the challenge here is no longer just moving posts, votes, or task cards around. A rental app has several parts that need to talk to each other at the same time. Search inputs affect the listings, category filters change what appears on the page. Each property card opens its own detailed view, and the booking form has to calculate pricing based on the user's dates. And that makes Airbnb a strong test for Claude because the app needs to feel connected. A static grid of nice-looking property cards would not be enough. The search bar needs fields for location, check-in, check-out, and guests. The category bar here needs to filter the listings. The property cards need prices and ratings, image areas, and host details. And then when a user clicks on a listing, the app needs to open a detailed view with photos, amenities, map placement, and a reservation panel. The full Airbnb prompt is shown right here on your screen, but the main request is for a clean marketplace clone with the Airbnb-style visual hierarchy, a sticky top navigation bar, a segmented search pill, a horizontal category ribbon, a responsive property grid, clickable listing cards, a detailed property modal, and a booking widget that calculates the stay total from selected dates. And to build it, I'm just going to go back to base 44, open up the main prompt console, and check the lower left settings icon again to make sure that Opus 4.8 is active. And once Claude is selected, I'll paste that Airbnb prompt shown here on your screen and then click the arrow icon to start the generation. And after base 44 finishes, as you can see, the first thing I want to test is the search and filtering experience. The top search area here captures the destination text, date inputs, and guest count, and the listing results respond based on those values. The category ribbon also works as a separate filter, so choosing a different property type updates the visible cards instead of just leaving the grid unchanged. The listing grid is laid out clearly. The cards appear in a balanced multi-column layout, and each one includes the key Airbnb-style details, the image placeholders, ratings, location text, host-style descriptions, and nightly pricing. It feels more like a marketplace page than a simple gallery. The detail view is the part that makes the clone just feel much more complete. Clicking a property card opens up a modal for that specific listing, and that the content will change based on the selected property. The modal also includes a larger photo layout, host information, amenities, a map placeholder, and a booking panel attached to the side. The booking form also works beyond just looking nice, because when the user selects dates, then the app calculates the number of nights and updates the total price automatically. And that means Claude handled the data connection between the listing, the date field, and the pricing summary, which is one of the most important pieces of this type of app. Claude's strongest result here is the modal logic and the price calculation. The app reads the selected listing, pulls the right details into the overlay, it tracks the booking input, and then updates the receipt without breaking the rest of the page. Now, the search and category filters also give the clone a real marketplace feel instead of just making it look like a static landing page. The main limitation, however, is media and maps. Since this is only a single prompt build, it does not connect to live mapping APIs, real property images, or external media folders. So the locations and the photos appear as clean placeholders or graphic blocks rather than just real map data and actual listing photography. The structure still gives you a strong starting point for a client marketplace, and you could turn this into a car rental platform, equipment booking site, venue marketplace, short-term rental directory, or pretty much any app where users browse listings and open detailed booking pages. The filtering, the modal details, and the booking calculation are already wired in, so the next step would be connecting the listing data and images and reservations to real storage. So for the final clone, I wanted to test something that feels fast. Twitter or X is a good choice here because the whole product depends on quick reactions. So when you type, the character count changes right away. You click like or repost, the number updates instantly. If you open up your profile, and the center feed then should switch without making the whole app feel like it restarted. The main thing Claude has to capture here is the pace of the interface. The layout itself is familiar, navigation on the left, the timeline in the center, and then trends on the right. But the real important part is how responsive everything feels inside that structure. A Twitter X-style app cannot feel slow or heavy. It has to react while the user is still typing and clicking around. The full prompt is again shown here on your screen, but the request is basically for a Twitter X-style microblogging app with a fixed 3-column layout, sidebar navigation, a scrolling center timeline, trends and suggested accounts on the right, a post composer with a live 280 character limit, clickable reply, repost, and like counters, plus a profile view that opens up inside the same center panel. So now I'll run the build the same way as we have before with the others. I'll open up Base 44. I'm going to check the lower left model setting to make sure that Opus 4.8 is active. I'm going to paste that Twitter/X prompt shown here on your screen, and I'll click the arrow icon to generate the app. And once the preview opens up, the first thing that stands out is the structure. The left navigation has the expected links like home, explore, notifications, messages, bookmarks, and profile, along with a strong post button. Now the center column holds our timeline, and the right side shows search, trending topics, and suggested accounts. It immediately reads like a microblogging dashboard. The composer is the part I care about most though in this clone, and as I type, the character counter, as you can see, updates in real time. And once the text passes the 280 character limit, then the submit button shuts off automatically. That tells me Claude understood the validation logic, not just the visual design of the input box. The timeline interactions also respond quickly. So reply, repost, and like buttons, those update their numbers as soon as they're clicked, which gives the feed the kind of instantaneous feedback a Twitter-style app needs. Now, these are small details, yes, but they do make the difference between, say, a static clone and something that actually feels usable. The profile navigation works inside the same app as well, so clicking profile changes the center panel here into a personal profile page with a banner area, user bio, follower counts, and a tab post history. The browser does not reload and the side panel stays in place, so the app keeps that single page feel. And Claude does especially well with the real-time parts of this build. The character counter, disabled button state, the post interaction numbers, and profile view switch all stay synced while the user moves through the interface. The limitation is live data. This version works as a local simulation, so it does not stream outside posts into the timeline through a WebSocket or live backend. That would need to be added later if you wanted it to behave like a real-time social network. But for a custom product though, this is already a clean starting point. You could turn it into an internal company update feed, a live event ticker, a sports commentary feed, or a private community posting tool. The timeline, the composer validation, profile routing, and interaction counters are already in place. The next layer would be real users, saved posts, and live data. So now that all 5 of our clones here are finished, this is the part where we can just kind of step back and then look at them side by side. The goal here is not just to say which one looks the best, it's really to see what Claude handled well, where the single prompt approach started to show its limits, and which types of apps just came out the most complete from one generation. So looking across all 5 here, the biggest takeaway is that each clone kept its own structure. The Facebook clone stayed in that fixed 3-column social layout with the left sidebar, center feed, and right contacts panel all holding their place while the feed handled posts and likes. The Reddit clone had a different feel, using a darker community layout with voting, postcards, and a thread view that opened without breaking the flow of the app. And then the Trello clone stood out because it moved away from feeds entirely. It used a horizontal Kanban board, separate task columns, and draggable cards that could move between lists. Airbnb was more of a marketplace test, combining search inputs, category filters, listing cards, detail modals, and booking calculations. And then Twitter and X focused on speed with a 3-column timeline layout, a live character counter, instant like and repost updates, and a profile view that opened inside the same app. And out of all 5, Trello and Twitter and X came out the strongest from a single prompt. Now, Trello works so well because the structure is just very clear for Claude to understand. A Kanban board is basically just columns filled with task cards, and each card belongs to a specific list. So that kind of data structure is quite predictable, so Claude can organize the logic cleanly. So for Twitter and X, those also perform really well because the core experience is quite direct. There is a timeline, a composer, character validation, and small interaction counters. Since the app is built around quick local updates rather than, say, deeply layered data, Claude was able to keep the code focused and responsive. Airbnb was more complex because it asked for several systems to work together at once. And we're talking search fields, category filters, listing data, modal details, and booking math. They all had to connect cleanly. Claude handled the main functionality well enough, especially the booking modal and price calculation, but really this kind of app naturally just has more trade-offs in a single prompt. When the logic gets heavier, smaller visual details or real-world integrations like maps and live images become harder to fully reproduce in one pass. What this shows, though, is that Claude is very strong at layout structure, view switching, inline forms, local state, and clean interface logic. It can build apps that just feel surprisingly complete when the prompt gives it a clear blueprint. The more predictable the data structure is, then the better the result tends to be. The prompt style also made a big difference here. The best output came from a prompt that did not just say, clone this app. Nope. They described the layout, the components, the functionality, and the design direction clearly. And that gave Claude enough structure to build a working app in one pass instead of guessing what each product should include. And that's the real value of this workflow. You can take a proven product format, you can recreate the foundation quite quickly, and then reshape it into something original. For a client, that means you are not showing a flat wireframe or a rough mockup. You can show a live prototype that already has layouts, interactions, and app logic built right in. And then from there, it just becomes much easier to customize the branding, connect real data, and turn the clone into a unique product. So the main thing I take away from all of this is that cloning is not really about copying a popular app. It's about using a product that people already understand as a shortcut for structure. Facebook already tells you how a social feed should feel. Trello already tells you how a task board should work. Airbnb already gives you the shape of a marketplace. So when you use those patterns as a starting point, you're not beginning from nothing anymore. So the prompt is what makes all of that possible. If the prompt is lazy, then the output will look lazy. If it only says, make something like Twitter, well, then Claude has to guess too much. But when the prompt clearly explains the layout, the sections, the actual interactions, and the visual direction, well then the result just becomes way more usable from the first generation. And that's the formula I'd keep using after this video. Describe the structure of the screen, then explain the main components that need to appear, spell out what should happen when someone clicks, types, posts, filters, drags, or opens up something, then give Claude enough design direction so that the app has a clear style instead of looking generic. And out of all the 5, Trello probably came out the cleanest here because the logic is so organized. Cards live inside columns, columns represent status, and moving a card means changing where that task belongs. So Claude is really good at that kind of structured interface. It can keep the data separated, it can update the right section, and maintain a layout that still feels stable. The useful part is that none of these clones have to stay as clones. You could take the Facebook version, and then you can turn it into a private team feed. The Reddit version could become a feedback board. Trello could become a workflow tracker for a client. Airbnb could become a booking platform for rentals or services. The Twitter and X clone could become a company update feed or a live event timeline. So if you really do want to keep building from here, then open up a blank project in Base 44, make sure that Claude Opus 4.8 is selected, and then just pick one product pattern that matches the app that you want to create. And then write the prompt around the same core pieces, the layout, components, functionality, and design. And once the foundation is there, then you can change the branding, replace the sample content, connect real data, and then turn it into something that actually fits your own idea. All right, so thank you for watching and investing your time with me today. I'll see you at the next build.